Kidnapped in Detroit and taken to Toledo, the alleged crime across state lines and the details of this police investigation. And claims of neglect at a Northwest Ohio horse stable is gaining traction online. What our 11 Investigates team found and how the police are involved.
And we're looking at fog that's going to be developing overnight tonight and into early Tuesday morning. Could result in visibilities that drop down to a quarter of a mile or less. We'll have that hour-by-hour breakdown and what to expect to Tuesday morning coming up.
Welcome into WTOL 11 News on Plus. I'm Kaylee Marentat. Thanks for being with us for this special streaming edition of WTOL 11 News. Right out of the gate, developing tonight, a Toledo man is behind bars after police say he kidnapped a woman and assaulted her in his West Toledo home. Toledo police say Kevin Thompson II kidnapped a woman in Detroit over the weekend. He then handcuffed her in his car and brought her back to his home near Lasky and Lewis. Court documents show Thompson is charged with rape for allegedly forcing the woman to engage in sexual acts with him. TPD officials say Thompson knows the victim.
But the fact of the matter is that more often than not, in the vast majority of rapes and sexual violence, it is the perpetrator knowing, grooming, and gaining trust, and then perpetrating violence against that victim.
A judge set Thompson's bond at $750,000. He's due back in court October 8th. A Toledo man has been convicted for his involvement in the death of a 20-year-old. According to court documents, 32-year-old Alexander Perez withdrew his previous pleas of not guilty and pleaded guilty to arson and abuse of a corpse. Police found 20-year-old Josiah Gill's body in a burning car under the Veterans Glass City Skyway Bridge last November. An autopsy revealed he died from a gunshot wound to the head. According to court documents, Perez set the car on fire with Gill in the back seat. Our 11 Investigates team is looking into concerns with the owner of Precious Sea Stables in Walbridge. These allegations are gaining attention on social media. Sarah Collins is the owner of Precious Sea Stables. According to Lake Township Police, officers responded to Collins' property over the weekend. It ended with Collins getting arrested, charged with unlawful restraint, obstructing official business, and resisting arrest. Collins says a customer came to the stables to pick up a horse they were in the process of buying, but Collins claims the customer didn't have any money. Ultimately, Collins says the customer left with the horse and she left in handcuffs with 3 charges. Collins says she will be fighting those charges. One North Toledo business is not happy with how a situation was handled last week with first responders. Speaking up after a half-mile radius order was evacuation order was put into place because a fire started around hydrogen tanks. Last week, the fire was at 1H2 Incorporated, and that fire around the tanks, which had hydrogen in them, which is very flammable. Fire officials closed off the streets and set up a half-mile perimeter just in case anything happened. However, the trucking company, Smoky Point Distribution, is just down the street from where that fire happened. The office manager believes more should have been done to check and make sure employees weren't still in neighboring businesses. She says 2 truckers were asleep in their semis on the company's lot. A spokesperson for Toledo Fire says they'll look into mass communication like text alerts if something like this happens again. Perrysburg Township Fire and paramedic Troy Bernhard died Friday after battling occupational cancer. Bernhard worked for Perrysburg Township Fire EMS for 28 years. His friends and family say they're remembering him as a family man who was always quick with a joke.
He was in the fire service, I believe, from the time he graduated high school. So for 31 years, he had spent his life inside a fire station or an EMS facility doing the job that he loved and being able to help give back to the community and provide to those who were sick or injured.
Bernhard's funeral will be at Monclova Road Baptist Church on Saturday at 10:30 in the morning, followed by a funeral procession. Governor Mike DeWine ordered 4 flags in Wood County to be lowered to half staff until sunset on Saturday. More than 115 people have died across 6 states since Hurricane Helene hit the southeastern U.S. part last week, and there are still more than 2 million homes and businesses in the dark. Some towns in Florida reported 90% of homes are destroyed, and many parts of South Carolina are not expected to have power until the end of the week. Cleanup is expected to take years. We're going to bring in Chief Meteorologist Chris Vickers. Chris, this speaks to just how powerful this storm was.
Full with this storm, but how far inland we experienced those impacts. As we stressed last week, we would see with Helene that catastrophic flooding threat was going to go well into the Appalachian Mountains, and unfortunately that worst case scenario was materialized. Let's take you back through the life cycle of Hurricane Helene. This initially became a tropical storm towards the middle to end of last week, just off the Yucatan Peninsula, and you're going to see this erupt into a major Category 4 hurricane. And again, this was last Thursday into Thursday night. Helene made landfall right there in Florida, and then eventually the remnants zipped up into the Carolinas and even impacted our area with some wet weekend weather and some windy weather as we went through Friday and into Saturday. So what was the actual result of this? Hurricane Helene made landfall as a Category 4 storm, one of the strongest hurricanes to hit the Big Bend region since records began back in the 1850s. At landfall, Helene was a Category 4 storm. Winds to 140 miles per hour as that central pressure dropped to 938 millibars, which was an indication it was still strengthening as it made landfall. So what are we looking at going forward? Yes, there is the chance of additional tropical cyclone formation in that same area. At this point, though, it is about a 50% chance in the next couple of days. We are not expecting that to turn into anything like what we saw with Helene. We do have another named tropical storm. This is Kirk, and this is expected to become a major hurricane, but this one goes harmlessly out into the Atlantic Ocean. No immediate impacts from that. Kaylee, back over to you.
All right, thanks, Chris. As we wrap up the month of September, we're looking forward to all the things bone-chilling and spooky with October starting tomorrow. In today's Behind the Hashtag, we'll break down the latest Halloween costume trends you may see while out trick-or-treating. Spirit Halloween came out with its list of Halloween trends for 2024. Among this year's popular movie theme choices are the new emotions from Pixar's Inside Out 2, Beetlejuice characters, and the ever-popular Minions. The mob wife aesthetic and Taylor Swift-inspired Eras Tour outfits are also predicted to be popular this year. If that's not for you, variants of Deadpool costumes for the whole family, including your furry friends, are expected to be popular after Deadpool and Wolverine became a box office hit. So, Chris, I guess I feel like it's kind of too, for me, I'm like very last minute on my costumes. I don't know what I'm going to be this year.
Well, I thought it was too early, and then you're right. It's essentially October now at this point. You know, if it was last year, you'd have to do something with like a winter coat. And remember the snow that came down last year? I tend to like a little mix of like spooky and humorous. I think a costume has to have some humor associated with it too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't even remember what I was last year, but I do remember as a kid, I felt like every first snowfall was on Halloween.
It seems like it was, and last year we can actually verify that was the case. Do you have one picked out yet this year?
I don't.
You're a little too last
I'll
minute.
probably decide like October 30th or 29th.
Never too late, as long as you have fun with it.
All right, well, if you want to see more breakdowns of viral trends and 60-second stories, check out our WTOL 11 social media pages on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Walz are finishing final preparations for tomorrow's vice presidential debate. The 90-minute matchup will be the first and likely only debate for the candidates. CBS News polling finds 65% of Democrats are enthusiastic about Walz as VP, compared to 49% of Republicans about Vance. Unlike the presidential debates, both campaigns have agreed that microphones will remain on throughout the event. VP candidate Tim Walz frequently touts his career as a teacher and union member. Our National Verified team takes a look at some of the claims he's making about the history of unions and the presidential race.
On the campaign trail, vice presidential candidate Tim Walz routinely argues for the importance of workers' unions. And at some campaign stops, he gives that argument a personal touch.
I am, for decades, a card-carrying union member of our state's teachers union, which I was. The last union member on a national ticket, Ronald Reagan.
But is that true? Let's verify. Our sources: the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, and the U.S. Office of Government Ethics. It's true that Walz was in the Teachers Union, the National Education Association. And it's true that Reagan was in a union before he entered politics, the Screen Actors Guild. In fact, he was president of the guild for many years. But a more recent candidate was also in that same union, Donald Trump. Trump joined the Guild in 1992, appearing in many movies and TV shows over the years. Trump left the union in 2021 after they moved to ban him because of his actions on January 6th. Financial disclosure reports show he still has a union pension plan. So we can verify, no, Tim Walz is not the first union member to be on a presidential ticket since Ronald Reagan. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.
Well, tens of thousands of dock workers could walk off the job as early as midnight, and that could disrupt the national supply chain. Labor negotiations between the Longshoremen's Association Union and the U.S. Maritime Alliance remain at a standstill. Union members are demanding higher wages and a total ban on the automation of cranes, gates, and moving containers in their new contract. New York's governor says the state is preparing for a potential strike.
It's all about being prepared. And I want to reassure everybody we have been taking countless precautionary steps to speed up the process of unloading these ships and deal with the cargo containers in advance of this. The food supply is secure right now, and we'll be certainly communicating with the public as this unfolds if it takes any length of time.
President Biden says he will not intervene in any strike, saying resolving the dispute is a matter of collective bargaining. Ohio's minimum wage is set to go up in January. Non-tipped employees will make at least $10.70 an hour come the first of the year. Hourly pay will be $5.35 for tipped employees. Officials with the Department of Commerce say the state's minimum wage is tied to the Consumer Price Index, and that index went up by 2.4% from September of last year to August of this year. Chris?
We're looking at our Tuesday morning, first morning of October, where patchy fog is going to be possible, maybe widespread indent in some areas, and that could linger through about mid-morning. And then a cold front that will come through Tuesday evening will bring us cool, crisp weather into Wednesday. You're going to feel quite a bit of a difference. Highs close to 70 degrees, much lower humidity. In fact, that humidity is going to plunge Wednesday into Thursday. Dry weather and more sunshine on Thursday. It is going to be an outstanding early October day. Highs right around 76 degrees. Now, we do have dry conditions across the area, expected to stay that way through the evening and overnight tonight, with many areas seeing temperatures dropping back through the 60s. And as far as the temperatures go, it is more October feeling as we go through the next couple of days. Visibility, it is clear, but we're going to have updates periodically, of course, as we continue our coverage of that potential fog into Tuesday morning. And keep in mind, we've got that exclusive school delay hotspot map, and as we'd expect at this point, there aren't any delays for Tuesday morning. But should we get any delays, we will have those live on WTOL 11 first thing in the morning on your Tuesday. We'll widen the picture out, though, because things are fairly quiet across the area right now. What we see as far as rainfall, these are still the remnants of Helene as that system is going to make its way off the eastern seaboard. Now, that morning bus stop forecast, some dense fog right around 63 degrees, close to 70 is what we're expecting for outdoor recess, and then mid to upper 70s with a chance of scattered afternoon showers and even an isolated rumble of thunder. So here's what the hour-by-hour forecast is going to move through. That fog is going to thicken up after midnight. Here's the clock right around 2 a.m. Question is, how thick does it get? How widespread does it get? And I do suspect we are certain to get at least some impacts to travel and schools. As we get into Tuesday morning, that fog could even be slow to lift. It may take us till after 10 a.m. before that fog does improve. So after some fog that's going to be out there early in the morning, let's put that hour-by-hour forecast into motion. There's some foggy conditions. We will have a front that approaches in the afternoon. That front will spark a narrow band of some rain showers or a brief clap of thunder. Once that front comes through, temperatures will tumble, winds will pick up, and it will turn much cooler Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning. So what to expect?